Okay, this next video is going to be about all of the different types of life. And to help me out today, I have my brother, Matt.
Hello.
What do you do, Matt? So everyone knows.
I am a band teacher.
Very good. So,
Yep.
you know a lot of science?
A little bit.
Okay, well, let's see what you know. So anyway, what we're going to talk about is, so my students have already learned, this organization of domain, kingdom, phylum, so on.
Okay.
So we're just going to talk about those top two groups, domain and kingdom. Now, there are actually only three domains of life, and those domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya.
Okay.
And then there are six kingdoms, which we'll get into. And we're going to talk about how we actually separate these things into the different kingdoms.
Alrighty.
And what we do is we look at very basic differences in life. So, when if you're putting millions and millions and millions of things in only a few categories, you're going to look at kind of really big differences, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the big differences we're going to look at are what kind of cell those organisms were made out of. So if they're prokaryote or eukaryote. Remember what a eukaryote is?
The ones that have nucleuses inside.
Yeah,
the
nuclei.
cell.
Yes.
Nuclei inside the cell.
Yeah, very good. We also look at what kind of cell walls organisms have, if they have any. Like, for example, do you have cell walls?
No.
No, you don't.
I don't. That's plants. Right?
Yeah, plants have cell walls, yeah.
All
Bacteria
right.
can too, and fungus.
Oh.
Well, we're going to go over that on this video. So,
All right.
Anyway, body type, so whether it's a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism, meaning are they one cell or many cells,
All right.
and then what they eat, or I guess how they get their nutrition. So if they're heterotrophs, which means
They eat things.
good, okay, or consume things, and then
Consume things.
yeah, and
Yeah.
autotroph is making their own
Yeah.
food.
So not eating things.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not going to spend a long time on this. If you need to copy down definitions, just pause the PowerPoint. All right. We're going to be using those words quite a bit. But anyway, so here are the six kingdoms of life. There's eubacteria. That should really say archaebacteria, but archaea. Then there's kingdom protista, kingdom fungi, kingdom plantae, and kingdom animalia. Okay? So now what we're going to do, we're going to look at what actually causes scientists to classify those things as that kingdom.
Sounds good.
So the first domain/kingdom we have here is domain bacteria. Now it's kind of tricky because we said there's six kingdoms and three domains. Well, domain bacteria, every single member of domain bacteria is a member of kingdom eubacteria. Okay?
That seems pretty easy to remember.
Yeah, so you just gotta kind of remember bacteria and eubacteria mean the same thing because the kingdom's not just called bacteria; it's called eubacteria.
Gotcha.
But anyway, they are prokaryotic organisms, which means do they have a nucleus?
No.
No, you are correct. No. Anyway, unicellular means they have one cell. Now, we've talked about cell walls really only in plants in this class so far. You're going to start having to remember what cell walls are made out of now. First of all, bacteria, they have cell walls, and they have something called peptidoglycan. Say that with me. Peptidoglycan. Yep. Anyway, they can be heterotrophic or autotrophic. There are, most bacteria that make us sick, they're heterotrophs. They get their nutrition by breaking down cells that we have,
Gotcha.
or feeding upon maybe bacteria that grow in your teeth. They feed off of the sugars and things like
Gotcha.
that are in your mouth.
So how come autotrophic bacteria don't make us sick, or are there some that do make us sick?
I don't know if I'm a highly qualified microbiologist to comment on that.
All right.
There might be autotrophic ones, but the autotrophic bacteria, there are some photosynthetic bacteria out there.
Gotcha.
So I guess I would more answer it this way. There might be possible they make you sick, but if it's a bacteria that can make its own food, does it really need to be a parasite?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know how to answer that question for sure, but that's kind of my...
That's a pretty good answer, though.
That was a good question. We're just going to compliment each other's questions
All
and answers. All right. Anyway, some examples are, you might have heard of the bacteria E. coli, which is actually very common inside your intestine. There's also some bad forms of it that can cause food poisoning, which is why people remember it or know that name. And then also strep throat is actually a bacteria. It's called, what is the first? I can't remember what the genus name is, but Streptococcus is the species name. And bacteria make up most of the biomass on the planet, meaning if you weighed all life on Earth, bacteria be most of it. They're the most common organisms on Earth. So now we're going to move to another domain, which seems similar, but actually they're more different than we like to give them credit. Bacteria and this next domain, archaea, actually incredibly different. But since they look very small and they're unicellular, we like to think they're very similar. In reality, archaea actually has more DNA in common with like you and me than they do with bacteria. But anyway, so this is domain archaea, also known as kingdom Archaebacteria. So if you notice, our first two domains
Archaea
also have a
and
kingdom.
Archaea.
Yeah. And they're also prokaryotes. They're also unicellular, as I said. They have a unique cell wall. They don't have peptidoglycan. The cell wall can actually vary. And then we talked earlier in the year about lipids, which is what makes up fat, is what makes up cell membranes, which all organisms have. And Archaebacteria actually have different lipids than most other organisms. That's also what makes them different. Archaea can be either heterotrophic or autotrophic. In some examples, I mean, archaea are really cool. They live in really extreme environments. In fact, they were discovered at Yellowstone National Park by a guy named Carl Woese.
Is that in what's in the geyser thing? What's that called?
In Old Faithful specifically, Old Faithful. It was in like the hot springs at. I don't know if it was actually like in the geyser. It was actually University of Illinois guy who discovered it. But anyway, they live in hot springs. There's some of these bacteria that they thrive upon the heat. Or another one that's kind of interesting, I have on the slide this genus called Sulfolobus, which, based on the name, what chemical do you think they like?
Sulfur?
Yep, you're right. They live in like volcanic vents, and
it's interesting.
They can get energy from like the heat from those. But anyway, so there are bacteria. There's a bacteria that we're actually Archaebacteria that we're able to engineer in a lake full of what's rat poison? Arsenic.
Arsenic?
Yeah, so they found
it's arsenic.
They found Archaebacteria that can live in high arsenic environments, which is like would kill pretty much any other organism. So they live in really extreme environments.
So are there any of them that live in like non-extreme environments, or is it all extreme environments?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to like scrape up a bunch of pond scum, there'd be a bunch of bacteria in there. There would be some Archaebacteria in there, and it'd probably be deeper down because they can survive with really low oxygen. So, I mean, they live in somewhat normal environments, if you will, just like maybe the lower oxygen areas of those environments sometimes. I mean, there very well could be some just like sitting on the counter somewhere.
Sitting around.
Yeah, just sitting around. I mean, that's what bacteria does. So now we're going to get into maybe the more charismatic domain, which is domain Eukarya, which we belong to. So anyway, there are actually 4 kingdoms within domain Eukarya. Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Animalia. I'm guessing you've heard of 3 of those, maybe 4.
I think I've heard of all 4 of those. I remember all 4 of those.
The first one that we're going to talk about, Kingdom Protista, is kind of the tricky one. Because here's what happened with Kingdom Protista, is, if you don't mind me going back, scientists were very easily able to classify the eukaryotes as either fungus, plants, or animals, but then they had all these leftovers that were mostly unicellular, and they just sort of threw it into Kingdom Protista and said, let the future classification scientists
let somebody else
do
worry
that
about
probably.
it.
Yeah, and that's what's happening actually, is we're restructuring Kingdom Protista.
Gotcha.
In fact, the textbook doesn't officially, like, they mention Kingdom Protista, but sort of say like Kingdom Protista is being broken up into different groups. So when I say there's 6 kingdoms even in this, it's not really an accurate statement, because
it's going to be different sometime soon.
I mean, it's being restructured as we speak. So, but for now, just we're gonna, for the sake of this class, say we have Kingdom Protista, and it's all eukaryotes. Most of them are unicellular. There are brown algae, which are multicellular, that get classified into this. And brown algae is what's mostly growing in the fish tank in my classroom. That's multicellular.
Yeah, that stuff's gross.
Yeah, but anyway, they can be heterotrophs or autotrophs. Some have cell walls and some don't. I mean, there's really not a major pattern for Kingdom Protista.
It's all the leftovers.
Yeah, it's kind of leftovers. That's what you would expect from that sort of thing. A lot of them live in water. There are some that don't. But some examples are amoebas, red and brown algae. Green algae have sort of switched over from being protists and plants, depending on who you ask. And paramecium, which is, I wish I had a picture here, but a paramecium is actually the organism that lives in the salivary glands of a mosquito.
Gotcha.
And will work its way in and give you malaria if you happen to live in a area with
So
malaria.
so aren't a lot of the protists, aren't they a lot they're like the what's it called? Like they're the ones that like latch onto you and everything.
Parasites?
Like that. Yeah, parasites.
There are a lot of parasites in the protist kingdom. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Not all are parasites. There are a lot of them that are extremely helpful. I like
Yeah.
a lot of plankton is not all plankton. There's a lot of arthropods and stuff. And well, SpongeBob is not a protist, but
Well, I was saying plankton from SpongeBob.
yeah.
SpongeBob.
I don't know how I'd classify that specific plankton, but
Oh.
I don't know what animal
don't
he's
know.
supposed to, or what organism he's supposed to be. But officially, like plankton is a collection of arthropods and even protists and things like that. So they're
Gotcha.
incredibly important for different ecosystems.
So what's krill then?
krill is an
the same?
arthropod, I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
because
so
it's
that's-
related to shrimp, right?
Oh yeah, I guess they
Yeah.
are really like tiny.
So that would
shrimp.
be an animal.
Okay.
But now we're gonna actually get these next three done pretty quick because they're a lot simpler than the last three things. So kingdom fungi, most of these are multicellular. There are some yeasts that are unicellular, so made of one cell. There's also some ones that live in water that are one cell. But for the most part, this is a multicellular kingdom. They have cell walls made of something called chitin. Say that with me, chitin.
Chitin.
Don't say chitin. That sounds like a bad word. But anyway, they are heterotrophs, and the way that fungus eat is they actually excrete an enzyme that breaks down something that's dead or decaying and makes it decompose even more, and then they
Gotcha.
soak up the nutrients. It's delicious. But anyway,
Interesting.
some example though are yeast, mold. Like, so if you see mold on your bread, the reason they grow on your bread is because they are breaking down your bread and trying to
Gotcha.
eat it. And then mushrooms are fungus. I put some particularly expensive fungi on the bottom of the slide there. You got morels on the left and truffles
Huh.
to the right.
So does that mean aren't what's it, penicillin, the one that's the mold? So that's fungi then?
Most antibiotics are penicillin is a chemical derived from penicilli mold.
Oh,
Most
gotcha.
antibiotics are. That's why some people are allergic to antibiotics, is because there's
they're allergic
trace
to like molds
yeah.
and stuff.
Yep.
Hmm. All right.
That's usually kind of where that comes from. But now kingdom plantae, these are all multicellular. They're all eukaryotes. They have
Okay.
cell walls made of something called cellulose. That's like if you knock on wood, that's because that cellulose, when you dry out the wood, the cellulose is still there. They are autotrophs. They accomplish getting food by photosynthesis. And some examples there, mosses, ferns, trees, other flowering
Gotcha.
plants. Now, the Venus flytrap, I put that on there
I was gonna
intentionally.
ask you about that. Like that would be a heterotroph then, right?
No,
Fly goes in and
the reason is the flies that they eat is more like a supplemental thing to their diet. They don't.
so they don't
necessarily
need to have it.
Yeah, they don't necessarily need to. No, they still get the vast majority of their energy
Gotcha.
from the sun.
Gotcha.
So they're still autotrophs.
So like I don't need my bacon with breakfast. I just want my bacon.
Sure, you think of it like flies are like bacon to a Venus flytrap. Yes.
Delicious.
So, our final kingdom is Kingdom Animalia, which we are a part of.
All
Because we are
right.
animals. They are multicellular. They are heterotrophic, meaning that animals eat things.
Yep.
Eukaryotes.
Like bacon.
Yeah, right.
Delicious.
Unless you're vegetarian.
Oh yeah, that's true.
There are a lot of vegetarian animals out there. No animals have cell walls. Most can move. Not all of them move. Now, this includes a lot of things. So most people, when they think of animals, just think of like things with backbones and the more charismatic animals. But insects are animals. Sponges are animals. Put SpongeBob on there. Worms. And then I put mammals, your birds,
Gotcha.
things like that.
So how are like sponges and other coral? Are they like corals animals too?
Yep, coral animals. They
So-
because they consume other organisms for their food. They are not autotrophic. They're heterotrophic.
Gotcha.
That's mainly why they get that
Interesting.
classification.
But they don't move around a lot. Though,
They
right?
all of them can actually at the early part of their lives.
Huh.
Like coral, when it's really really young, is like this larval stage that looks sort of like a jellyfish.
Ew.
On the flip
That's
side,
gross.
jellyfish kind of look like planted coral when they're in like a polyp stage at the beginning of their life.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yep.
I always kind of assumed that they were like sea plants.
Yep. They're not. They're animals.
All
So, all right, that was it. Thank you for your help, Matt.
You're welcome.
You might help out on a later video.
All right.
This
sounds
is very good.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you.
Bye, everybody.